Today on Men's Midlife Clarity, we're going to talk about weight loss, specifically the keto or low carb diet. I've struggled with my weight my entire life. I was a bit of a chunky kid, and I had one period in my 20s where I was working out and dieting and working really hard at being in shape, and was in as good a shape probably as I've ever been in during my single dating days. You know how it goes. And so for a few years, I was in a condition that I would certainly be happy to be in right now. But the root of my weight issues, I think, is that I have always just seen myself as a big guy, a big bellied guy. And the heaviest I ever was 270 pounds. And I haven't weighed that much in a while, but I've bounced between, let's say 220 and 250 for the last several years. And I finally found something that actually worked for me and that was sustainable. And I now consider my way of eating or way of life versus saying I'm on a diet. And it's low carb, it's keto. Real quick, I want to touch on keto versus carnivore. They're basically the same thing. Keto allows more different foods than carnivore, which is just strictly animal meat, animal products. And I don't think carnivore includes dairy, whereas keto does. So I eat dairy, I eat nuts, I eat cheese. And so I consider myself to be on the ketovore, which is a combination of carnivore and keto. But going back to the limiting beliefs, there is nothing physiological that is actually stopping you or me from losing weight. If you struggle with this and you've tried this diet, that diet a dozen different times, 100 different times, you're probably like me, and there has to be something that's stopping you from accomplishing that. But there isn't, other than your story about how you don't think you're capable of losing weight. I believed that for most of my life. So I just want to get that out there. But once I really truly gave the low carb diet, the low carb way of eating enough time for it to actually start working, just a little bit of success up front, losing 5 or 6 pounds, showed me that the diet could work if I would stick to it. I had been pre-diabetic for years, and then a few years ago, I moved into full-blown type 2 diabetes. My A1C got as high as 10. I had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, out-of-control blood sugar, which is metabolic syndrome, which a lot of guys have. Most guys that weren't born skinny, that have a few extra pounds, that are over 30, a lot of you guys do have metabolic syndrome, whether you realize it or not. If you're carrying around more weight than you should, then you're probably in that boat. But the biggest reason that I am such an advocate of the low carb diet is that it is the one thing that I have found that absolutely works without fail consistently if I put the effort in. I have never found anything else that worked as well for me, or worked at all really, that I could sustain over a long period of time. So what happens when you eat a whole bunch of carbs and sugar? Then your body dumps a whole bunch of insulin, because insulin is the key that unlocks the cells and allows the sugar to go out of your blood and into your cells. So your pancreas dumps a whole bunch of insulin to deal with all the sugar that you just ate. And when you eat carbs, they're converted straight into sugar. So you can really use carbs and sugar interchangeably. But what happens is your body overshoots the mark most of the time, and then your blood sugar ends up getting too low. And that's what causes people to get hangry, lightheaded, confused. That's why you feel really off and irritable and weird when your blood sugar is low, when you're really, really hungry. It's because you have unstable sugar, and your brain is literally not functioning right. I started to notice about 5 or 6 weeks in that I was not nearly as hungry nearly as often as I was before. And without even setting out to do intermittent fasting, which has become really popular, I had not even thought about that or looked into that yet. But I found myself only eating one meal a day, usually dinner, because I was only hungry once a day. And I also found out that if I got really busy doing something that I was paying a lot of attention to, a lot of times it would be 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I'd realize that I hadn't even eaten dinner, which would have been my only meal of the day. I hadn't eaten all day. And I might be a little hungry by then, but obviously not so ravenous that it grasps my attention, because it used to be when I started getting hungry, everything else went by the wayside until I got food. But that feeling that I have to eat something right now, or I'm either going to pass out or tear somebody's head off, all of that is gone, completely gone. My hunger is stable, my blood sugar is stable, and the other thing about this diet is when you're eating the right stuff, the experts actually say you should eat until you are comfortably stuffed. So when you do eat until you're full, and you can only eat low carb. But you don't have to be hungry on this diet. And I don't know about you, but I don't enjoy being hungry. I never have, and it's probably a large part of the reason why I've had such a hard time losing weight for my entire life. But with low carb, keto, carnivore, whatever, you don't have to be hungry. If you want to eat 2 15-ounce ribeye steaks, you can. I can't do that. And in fact, my overall appetite, the amount of food that I can eat in one sitting is probably half of what it used to be. Usually I order, if I get a ribeye, let's say a 14-ounce ribeye, I usually don't eat more than half of it. So when I cook 2 of them, that's 4 meals for me. Sometimes I might eat 2/3 of a steak if I'm really hungry, but I rarely finish a whole one. And that's without any mashed potatoes, sweet tea, salad, fries, nothing. Something else that to keep in mind as you progress in this new way of eating, your desire to eat the sweet things and the carbs, chips, bread, whatever, cookies, it'll begin to diminish. And after you've done this for a while, if you do taste something sweet, a bite of a cookie, a sip of sweet tea, it'll seem so incredibly sweet, you'll wonder how you ever did that. It'll almost be inedible. And for me, that's a great perk because I love not having that constant pull toward that stuff that I know isn't good for me. So I weighed in just the other day and I weighed 208 pounds. I had started this diet last year and I got down to about 215, which was the lowest I had been since, let's just say pre-2020. I'm sorry, pre-2000, not 2020, over 25 years. And so that was last year, and I got sidetracked. I started a new job. I was out of town for several months, traveling and training and living in a hotel. And I'm just going to be honest, I blew it. The diet went out the window. I went right back to my old ways of doing things and started gaining weight again. So here a few months ago, I decided to get back on it and kind of reminded myself of how great it works and how much better I feel. And that's part of what prompted me to go ahead and make this podcast. And my weight's coming down again. It's when you see something that actually works and you're just so used to things not working, it really makes an impression on you. I had forgotten how well I was doing, how good I felt, and the energy, how much more energy I had, all of it. And I am literally on the cusp of reversing type 2 diabetes. I think I've got like 0.2 or 0.3 more to go on my A1C, and I'll be back in pre-diabetes. In fact, that's the whole thing that lit this fuse a couple of years ago. My blood sugar, my diabetes kept getting worse because I wasn't doing anything different. I was eating shit all the time. I was completely sedentary, and my blood sugar kept getting worse to the point my doctor put me on insulin. And again, I'm type 2. I'm not type 1, so this is all my fault. It's all diet and lifestyle. I wasn't born with diabetes. But I sat there one day and sucked the needle to take the insulin, and I said, this is insane. And I sat there and I thought, I'm shooting insulin, which doesn't solve the problem. It only helps to cover it up because I have a terrible lifestyle. Your body already can't handle the amount of sugar that you're eating even if your pancreas is healthy and putting out all the insulin it's supposed to, your body can't handle the sugar you're eating because it's too much, because the human body was never designed to have that much. So putting in more insulin is just covering up the problem. And I knew that. I had done enough reading and enough research at that point to know that. It's spraying air freshener when you've got rotting meat in the trash can. If you don't get rid of the source, you're never going to get rid of the smell. So when you begin to see real changes happen, it really is exciting and motivating. And I don't know about you guys, but when I put my pants on and they want to fall off and I have to go punch another hole in my belt until I can buy a new one, that's a pretty good feeling. When your pants literally start to fall off of you if you don't tighten your belt up enough, I just, man, that fires me up. I can't think of many things in the world that feel much better than that. And the fact that I'm carrying around 30, 40 pounds less, whatever, it's better on my feet, it's better on my ankles, my knees, my back. I've had 4 back surgeries, and so I need all the help I can get. My sleep got better, and I just can't express how life-changing this can be if you will do it and if you will stick to it no matter what. So let's talk about getting started on the diet, because it is hard to get started. It's hard to adapt to this. But once you're adapted to it and you've been on it for a while, I'd say a minimum of 2 months, then it becomes very easy to live with. Once you get through the initial phase, the initial difficulty, it is not hard to maintain, and it will literally change your life. However, when you first stop eating all the carbs and sugar, you're automatically going to stop eating a lot of processed food, because most of the processed food has that stuff in it. And so your body is just going to not know what's happening. It's been running on sugar forever, and it's going to take probably about a week for your body to adjust and get used to it. And that's just because the SAD diet, the standard American diet, is so bad and so full of so much stuff that's terrible for you. Your body gets used to it, and when you stop putting all that in there, it has to adjust. There's a major difference between the keto diet and the way it works and any other diet that I can think of, which are known as calorie deficit diets. I can't think of any off the top of my head that are not calorie deficit other than keto. And what that means is, let's say that your body requires 2,500 calories a day to operate and run your life. And that is without you losing or gaining any weight. That's just to stay exactly where you are for the level of activity you do every day. You have to reduce that. The common number that you'll find if you research this is you have to reduce that number by at least 500 calories a day to see measurable, sustainable weight loss. So if you're used to eating 2,500 calories a day, you have to drop down to 2,000. And that's how you lose weight, because you're burning more energy than you're taking in. However, the problem with that is that your body is still burning sugar, glucose, for energy. What happens when you switch over to the keto diet, and don't take my word for this, go do your own research. There's so much research online about this. In fact, I'll drop a couple of sources here. My number one book recommendation would be The Diabetes Code by Dr. Jason Fung. And also YouTube number one choice is Dr. Ken Berry. And there's also a female doctor. She goes by Dr. Boz. Highly recommend all of them. They'll give you a lot more information and go a lot more in depth than I'm going to do here. But as you begin to wean yourself off of all of this crap, the sugar, the carbs, the processed foods, your body is going to rebel. It's not going to know what to do because it's not used to that. It's used to having a steady supply of sugar, and it's going to be a little bit painful to go through the withdrawals of getting off that sugar and converting over to burning fat, which is actually what you're doing. You're going from burning sugar for your main fuel to burning fat. So what happens after you've been on the keto for a while and you really start to get adapted to it? Your body completely shifts from burning sugar, and because you're not eating all those carbs, so it doesn't have the sugar to run off of. So it has to switch over, and it switches over to fat as its fuel source. The purpose of fat in the human body is to store fuel for future reserves. In the caveman days, there wasn't always food available. Sometimes, let's say they might kill a woolly mammoth or whatever they were hunting, and then they'd eat really well for 2, 3, 4 days, and then it might be a week again before they had another kill or had anything to eat. So that's why they stored fat, and their body would switch over to burning fat during that time. And so that's what fat is designed to do. It goes to your gut, your face, your liver, and that's where it accumulates. It starts to build up around all of your organs. And all of that fat has a purpose. It's to fuel your body when you run out of sugar. But the problem is that in modern times, with the standard American diet and stores full of peanut butter and bread and chips and cookies and soft drinks, all the stuff we eat, our body was never designed to have this much processed food, these many simple carbs and this much sugar. It was never designed for cereal aisles and ice cream aisles. And so when you switch back over to burning fat, what happens is your body completely stops burning sugar. The first place that it goes to get that fat is your liver, because your liver is what converts fat into sugar. It's called gluconeogenesis. So your brain has to have a certain amount of sugar to run off of. So your liver converts that fat into the sugar that your brain needs. And then once it cleans up all the fat in the liver, that's when it starts going to your face, your butt, your legs, your gut, whatever, wherever your fat's built up. And again, that's the difference between this diet and any calorie deficit diet. And that's why you don't get that hungry, because when your blood sugar doesn't spike, your insulin doesn't spike, which then shoots your blood sugar back down because you're not eating all of that sugar. You eat fat, your body runs off of fat, and when you start running a little bit low, it just simply burns your fat reserves. So you're quite literally changing the fuel source that your body runs on, and that makes all the difference. You can lose weight with a calorie deficit diet, but those are the ones where you really have to work to stay on it. You have to count calories. You have to pay attention to what you eat. You can't go over a certain number of calories. And again, on this diet, you can eat as much as you want as long as it's not carbs and sugar. There aren't a lot of food cravings I've found that either a ribeye or a piece of bacon or some cheese won't satisfy for me. So you don't have to worry about being hungry. But going back to starting the diet, because this is really important, in the first few days, it's going to be really tough. You are likely to get something called the keto flu, and all that means is you're going to feel like crap because your body is flushing out all that poison you've been eating, and it's getting used to not having all that processed stuff and all that sugar. And so if you've been eating this way for all of your life or for several decades, it's going to take a little bit of time for your body to adjust. One thing to keep in mind when you stop eating all the processed food and the carbs is that your salt content and your mineral content are automatically going to decrease by a very large percentage, because most of the salt that we take in is in those processed and carb-rich foods. So during the first few days when you're just starting out on this, you want to take in a little extra salt. In fact, my blood work when I was on the diet showed me the electrolytes being down. My potassium, my sodium, and my chloride were all below the acceptable level. So I started adding some drops. I think they're called 40,000 volts, but you can get calorie-free drops off Amazon or GNC or wherever. You just put a few drops in your coffee or your water, and that adds in those minerals and electrolytes that you're missing out on. So make sure you get plenty of sleep, extra salt, and electrolytes. I would avoid alcohol altogether for the first week or two. And then if you stay off of alcohol, it will actually supercharge keto and make it begin to work faster and work even better. So it's tough to start. It's really hard to stick with for the first 7 days. But if you can get through that, and I would say if you can't commit for at least 6 weeks to this diet, it's probably best that you don't even start it, because if you do it for 3 or 4 weeks and you don't lose any weight, or you gain a pound or two after you've suffered through that first hard week, you're going to give up. And you really need to count on about 6 or 8 weeks before the diet starts working like it's supposed to. Your weight will vary just like it does now. It may even go up a couple pounds. And then what has happened with me every time is my weight would stay the same or go up a little bit. And then all of a sudden, one day I'd get on the scale and I'd be down 6 or 7 pounds. And then a week later, I'd be down 3 or 4 more pounds. And then that just kept happening. So if you weigh yourself every day or even every week, you're going to be disappointed. I would suggest to probably wait at least a month before you even start. And again, if you're not going to commit to this for 6 weeks, you're probably going to be wasting your time and effort. But if you can stick with it, it is life-changing. So thanks for listening. Drop a comment and let me know what you think about this. If any of you have tried the keto or low carb before, what it was like for you, if you were successful with it, and what's been your struggles? What's the biggest thing holding you back from losing that 30 or 40 pounds that you've been wanting to do for years? Because I'm telling you, I am the guy that didn't think it was possible. And once I just believed that it was possible and then stuck with the plan, it happened. And I feel so much better, and I want you to feel better too. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.